Our paper is entitled Implications of Procedural Justice on Police Legitimacy in South Africa. Before I can really go into the main content of the paper, it is very much needed that we need to be able to understand what we mean by procedural justice. The procedural justice model is prescriptive. It provides a blueprint for how police can act fairly and earn legitimacy with the constituents that they serve. This model goes beyond measuring outcomes. It also focuses on how policing is carried out. So it's got four pillars. The first one, the voice, which is allowing citizens to express their viewpoint. Neutrality, that is an unbiased and consistent decision-making. And the third pillar is respect, treating people with dignity. And the fourth one is trustworthiness, showing care and sincere concern. It is argued that procedural justice is intrinsic to every police action, a dynamic coefficient that shapes legitimacy and trust, an elementary determinant of community satisfaction with police. Legitimacy and trust can be built if this ethos drives the everyday interaction of officers and citizens. Now, if these traits are not present, they can easily and quickly erode. So the main aim of our study was partially to describe to what extent individuals have distrust in institutions of law enforcement, such as the South African Police Service, a key institution of a democracy that forms part of the criminal justice system. Our paper has, come up with a problem statement to indicate that in South Africa, there are significant challenges to procedural justice, a cornerstone of police legitimacy stemming from factors like high crime rates, mistrust, and a need for more community engagement. Recently, what is happening, of which today the President of the Republic of South Africa, has been scheduled to address the community as well as the people of South Africa regarding what is happening within the South African Police Service, where one of the generals, came with a very explosive information regarding the Minister of the Police as well as, his associates. So that also put a challenge in terms of the trust that the citizens, the community, as well as the people of South Africa have towards, the law enforcement agency, meaning, the South African Police Service. Recently, even the divisional commissioner within crime intelligence has been arrested together with other people because of certain maladministration as well as certain issues that happen within crime intelligence. Now, the focus should be on strengthening the police legitimacy through the application of procedural justice principles, which are more cost-effective and have a positive impact on public trust as well as social cohesion. Currently, this is what is missing within the South African Police Service, even within certain specialized units that are entrusted to be able to protect the citizen of South Africa. Now, a research objective for this particular paper was to understand how fair police procedures impact public trust and cooperation. For us to be able to to come up with the findings, the materials and methods. This research uses qualitative research methods with a descriptive qualitative approach, which aims to reveal events or facts, circumstances, phenomena, variables, and circumstances that occur when research takes place by presenting what happens. The technique of determining informants carried out by researchers in research is the purposive sampling technique. Now, when we look at the, what else have we done? We also look at observations. This is also part of, gathering, information, as well as in-depth interviews with participants, but also not only, it was not only a one-on-one, but also involving other focus groups so that we can be able to get as much information from those that will be able to avail themselves in the area of the study. So a total of 37 face-to-face interviews for both focus group interviews and key informants interviews were conducted. Community members knowledgeable about policing activities and over 18 at the time of the interviews were, sent letters and emails by the first author on behalf of the researchers so that we can seek information or permission from them. Now, when we look at the research findings, this study yielded 6 themes, but for the purpose of this presentation, because of time, I can only present 4 themes. Theme number 1, the level of safety in the cluster areas. Now, where this study was conducted, according to the responses of the research participants, the level of safety varies between areas and between specific sub-areas within areas. Normally, how it works, people are aware, even those who are perpetuating crime, that whenever there is a saturation of police officials at a particular area, so criminals, they have to move to a certain particular area. And at the time when we conducted this particular research, we also found those kind of dynamics that not every place, as well as participants in that particular area were able to give, consistency with others. So we came also across, the theme, sub-theme 1, the level of safety, in that particular area of, East London, Cambridge policing area. The main Cambridge area is in the East London, that is in the Eastern Cape metropolitan area. It is one of the oldest residential areas in the city that used to be whites only area during the apartheid period. Now it is a mixed area. So now this area is reported to be troubled by crimes related to drug and alcohol abuse, with theft, domestic violence, gender-based violence, assault being the most common. Now, the last section of Cambridge, which is safely rated the poorest in the area, is the informal settlement located on the outskirts of Eastern Cambridge, namely in Lovini. So we came across, dynamics as well as areas where people really indicate that there has been a problem in terms of the trust between the communities, how they interact with the police, as well as, the prevalence of drugs in that particular area. Now on theme 2, the role of the police and communities as partners in fighting crime in the areas. The findings highlighted that the police reported the following. Now, these are some of the responses that we received. Attending to the complaints from community members, rushing to scenes of crimes to protect complainants. If a crime has already occurred or is unpreventable, police open a case and call necessary units to investigate and link available evidence. Police must psychologically calm the crime scene. So these are some of the, areas, as well as, what is expected from the police, even if they are not really professional psychologists or psychiatrists. And, so like in the case of gender-based violence, where you find people are fighting, so they are expected because of the role that they carry within communities, even if they are not specialists. And these are some of the responses they provided when we investigate, which came from the focus area number 1. So what does it mean? It means that police acknowledge that they have a role to play in building community capacity in line with their role in crime prevention. However, most of the time, this role is superseded by the overload of attending to crime complaints. So police, they're supposed to delegate this, services to the Department of, social development, because, they are not trained as professionals to be able to deal, but their job or their role is to attend to where there is a call for help and try and be able to check if they can arrest whoever is a perpetrator and diffuse the situation. Now, when we look at theme number 3, the level of trust between the police and the community, the findings highlighted that the police and the community in these areas recognize that if strong relations, of trust existed in their partnership, their communities will be safe and free from criminal elements. This is very much important, that whenever cooperation has been enhanced, so then it means that it will bring social cohesion as well as be able to thrive, criminals out of that particular group. So when we look at some of the responses from one of the key informant interviews, we accept everyone. We agreed as management and staff never to turn people out of excuses, such as they are not in our jurisdiction. Normally, if a crime has been committed in a particular area, so for a case, a number to be created, normally people have to be referred to where, a crime occurred. But in this case, they have been assisted even if a crime has occurred in a particular jurisdiction. Now, it says that the community of Cambridge rated the relationship of trust between the police and the community as fair, just as the service of the station. We also had observed some of the comments that as highlighted, but also that also reflected in a paper that we have submitted. When we look at theme number 4, the current strategies, which is very much important, considering the challenges that the perception in South Africa is that there is escalation of crime and the police lack resources. Hence, it is very much important that there is a collaboration between the police as well as the communities. What are the current strategies? So the main strategy is the establishment of community policing forums in the policing areas. Since the dispensation of the democratic dispensation, it has been, the mandate of the South African Police Service to be able to try to enhance these community structures so that the communities can become what we called, force multipliers. Now, community policing forums are reported to be established, when we look at some of the responses by communities under the guidance and conservation of the area police responsible for this, area of, units. Now, these community policing forums meet monthly in police stations and and they are also involved in different platforms between the police as well as communities. But what is important then, before I move to the conclusion, is that many research has been conducted in South Africa, both in the rural as well as in the urban rural areas and urban areas, where the issue of community policing forums, where then research has been conducted to check how effective, are these, collaborations between stakeholders. I need to indicate that, the findings indicate that even in our paper, that it's a work in progress because of mistrust, because of allegations of corruption, where when community members report about certain incidents, some of the police officials will go and report this to the gangsters or those who are implicated in crime. Now, as I conclude, then it is very much important that we need to highlight that despite all the limitations and its lack of, because this paper, it's not quantitative and it's got its own limitations, despite that we have, made use of variety of, representatives within this particular policing area. This is the first article that provides, or the paper that provides, with empirical evidence of an association between procedural justice and police legitimacy in the area of the study. Now, according to the findings, respect for rights during involuntary contacts with the police had a positive correlation and better assessment of police service during public initiated contacts and better public evaluations of police effectiveness. There is a room, of course, for growth between, we are talking about in South Africa professionalizing, law enforcement, whereby the contact of police, and the interaction with community members has to be enhanced. And other studies, they are looking at whether those that have studied, they have got formal qualification, is there any progress within law enforcement? But the issues of mistrust is something that, it has to be addressed by the government as well as the top management within the South African Police Service. There is a reluctance of the community to be involved or to testify through acknowledging to have witness of crime. We still see people who are whistleblowers, being killed in South Africa. So because of this, even our findings highlighted that, some of the participants as well as community members, they still find it reluctant to come forward to be able to report on the, activities of criminals within their spaces. The lack of trust undermines the legitimacy of law enforcement and creates an unequal society in which some feel safe and cooperate, to be able to cooperate with investigation, which is sad reality that after 3 decades in the democratic dispensation, you still find a large section of the community still saying that they don't trust the police. Now, according to the community, there is a strong need for strengthening the relations and improving poor communication between the police and the community. This is very much essential. Hence, then I mentioned that there is a drive within law enforcement to be able to increase professionalism. Now, there's also a serious need for intervention to improve the communication between case detectives, those that are, reacted, that have carrying case dockets in South Africa, to be able to, trace the complainants, but also to bring those who perpetrated crime, to the court to be able to answer for their crimes. Now, exploring community engagement, there is a need for community involvement. There is a need for feedback mechanism, but there is also a need for educational programs that the South African Police Service and other law enforcement agencies need to be able to, to grow and to improve upon, so that they can be able to bring more collaboration between themselves and the communities. My recommendations, it is very much important that there need to be more enhanced and advanced training that will be able to sensitize both the communities as well as South African Police Service. But also, there is also a need for a transparent complainant system, whereby if communities come forward to complain, they are also protected, their identity is also protected. So it is also needed that moving forward, there is a need for fair and effective policing. So it is very much important that the South African Police Service need to integrate technology to maximize organizational performance, but also reskilling the workforce to meet the 21st century challenges. It is also needed that they need to be able to enhance public engagement to build and sustain trust. And lastly, there is a need that is, to strengthen communication and transparency to foster community confidence and encourage active participation. Thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation.